Welcome back, fellow misfits. Real women, men, people who want a better life for themselves through working on the one thing that we all have our entire lives, our bodies. Last week, we started our 5P series on the 5 pillars of a fitness journey by starting with purpose. Purpose is the why you work out, which informs our goal. What tangible goal can we accomplish that will help satisfy our purpose? We spent last week discussing purpose's importance and asking you to ask yourself some questions that would really narrow this down and hone in on that important why. Well, now comes the fun part. Well, it's fun for us coaches anyway, and it can be fun for you because this next step helps simplify that larger, grandiose purpose into an attainable goal. And I encourage you to write this down someplace. You will see it every day. Your SMART goal. SMART. Many of you in education, the military, or business, and many of you who are in none of those, might recognize this model right away. In which case, you know that it is doubly important not to skip ahead. I first learned about, or at least remember learning about and retaining this model in the Army, because as we all know, the Army is well known for its love of acronyms. Simply put, a SMART goal is a goal that is S, specific, M, measurable, A, attainable, R, relevant, and T, timely. SMART, SMART. The exact wording of that varies from speaker to speaker, but the end result is the same. For a goal to be accomplishable, it must satisfy these components. It cannot be vague. It has to be specific. The first one. Well, what exactly are you trying to accomplish? Fat loss, muscle gain, both? Are you trying to become more mobile or promote longevity? Well, great. Now narrow that down more specifically. Usually at this point, we would also ask questions that help keep this specific with goals outside of fitness, like who is accomplishing this goal? But we know that answer. That's you. You're the one doing the work. You're the one working on your body. So again, narrow it down. If your answer to purpose was to get healthier because of medical insurance or coverage, then that usually implies weight loss. So narrow it down again. How much weight loss? Where are you now and where do you need to be? For this example, we will say client X needs to lose 50 pounds. Great. Now we have our specific. Now, our goal needs to be measurable. How are we going to measure this goal? With weight loss, that's easy. A scale, and hopefully a good one, with body composition analysis. It tells us not just our overall weight, but our bone, muscle, fat, and water. But how often are we going to measure? I personally usually advise no more often than every 2 weeks due to change in water weight and bloating that can occur between weekly check-ins. Even with those fluctuations, if someone is consistently losing weight, it'll show despite water retention when measured bi-weekly. So now that we have our goal and we have how we are going to measure it, we can also break it into measurable chunks. How much weight needs to be lost in how much time? If you want to lose 50 pounds, how long will it take to lose that? This answer ties into the remaining factors of this SMART goal pretty closely, but for now we will say that after determining that amount of time, you need to be able to track how much weight can be lost ideally each 2 weeks. So moving on, our next metric for a SMART goal is attainability. Now, some people use achievability or achievable with this step, but it's the same thing, and it starts with an A, and I tend to find that it rolls off the tongue much, much more easily. So we want an attainable goal. A good goal is a goal that is possible to attain, not one that is a pie-in-the-sky, lofty goal that bites off more than you can chew. Why? Well, just pretty bluntly, because most people and most clients that I have had in my experience become discouraged and either give up or slow down if they aren't seeing the progress that they want fast enough. And this starts by making sure that progress is the reflection of a realistic goal. Now, in our example, a healthy rate of weight loss in general is about 1 to 2 pounds per week. That can vary for so many factors. This doesn't take into account people who can lose weight faster or the weight that comes back on due to increased muscle mass, but with this number in mind, we can set a realistic goal for our client X who wants to lose 50 pounds. At the rate we mentioned, 1 to 2 pounds a week, 50 pounds lost would take roughly about 25 to 50 weeks. Now, if we average it at 1.5 pounds per week, if we've got a client that's doing everything that we ask them to do inside and outside the gym, that means it would take the client X roughly about 33 weeks to lose that weight. So, going back to our measurable metric, this means that we would want to take their goal and break it up into smaller and bigger benchmarks. Every 2 weeks, we would want our client X to weigh in and have lost 3 pounds if their goal was 1.5 pounds per week. And at a minimum, would want to be shooting for about 2 pounds every 2 weeks. That's 1 pound a week. If that wasn't happening, we would want to check and see what they were or were not doing inside and outside of the gym, from supplements and diet to exercise and active recovery. Which brings us to our fourth metric, relevant. Relevancy has everything to do with motivation and ties into one of our 5 P's very closely. Relevancy is the why you are doing it and the why you are sticking to it. If the goal is to lose 50 pounds and to do it in 33 weeks, why did you want this in the first place? And is the method you or your trainer is having you use relevant to your goals? Relevancy, therefore, is both the method and the motivation. What is keeping you doing this? And is what you're doing helping attain that goal? For our example of Client X, relevancy looks like a program with a combination of cardio and resistance training on training days, active recovery and active recovery cardio on off days, a diet that supports this, and a frequency that keeps you tracking towards your goals. Do they need to be doing it 2-3 times a week? Finally, our 5th metric for a SMART goal is timeliness, which we discussed briefly before when addressing how to measure this goal and how often. A timely goal cannot be some unknown point in the future. It has to have a deadline, even if sometimes that has to be adjusted or set back for life and setbacks. When we have a time limit set, or at least time limits set for benchmarks, we push towards them quicker and more aggressively. We're motivated to hit them. Unknown times and vague timelines just actively invite procrastination and chip away at our motivation. So now we have a true SMART goal. Client X will lose 50 pounds in 33 weeks at 1.5 pounds per week. This will be measured bi-weekly using a body composition scale. The program will be tailored for fat loss, including cardio, resistance training, active recovery, and calorie and macro goals. If Client X isn't seeing these results, every check-in we will evaluate whether the program is effective and whether what they are doing outside the gym is helping accelerate them towards their goals. If needed, we will adjust the timeline and the program. Now, in the example above, in my experience, there will be setbacks. No one is a machine capable of doing everything right away, and more time is often needed as someone acclimates towards making their fitness goals and program a lifestyle. This is part of my perspective point I'll be going into later in this series. But goals, while important and ideally accomplished to the T, aren't solely there as a metric to punish ourselves with. They serve as the backdrop by which we keep ourselves accountable internally and externally. And many other metrics will help keep our head in the game, and we will discuss that later in our perspective pillar of fitness. Things like how we look, move, feel, fitting into clothes we didn't before, performance in the gym, etc. But without the goal, none of that has a ruler against which to be measured. With that closes out our purpose pillar after 2 installments in our series. We will revisit this as it applies in further pillars, but for now, my homework for you is to go take your purpose, align it to a goal, and make sure that goal is SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. Just like a road trip, remember I love car and trip metaphors, our purpose is our destination. Now what we need is a roadmap, our plan. Next week, we will discuss how to pull out the roadmap for all of us old folks and the GPS for all of the younger among us, and plot how we are going to get there. The stops along the way, the means of transportation, supplies we will need, where we will rest our heads, and who we are taking with us. So, until next time, this has been Coach Cap, helping put the fit in misfit.